let me say thank you to Ivan Roman, the NAHJ board, and the other obviously brilliant members of the selection committee who elected me to this pantheon of giants. And to 2007 Hall of Famer, former president of NAHJ, former NBC producer, friend and colleague Cecilia Alvear. A special thank you for nominating me, Cecilia. I'm thrilled to be among the 24 other members of the Hall of Fame. I did notice that only 6 others are female, just under about 33%. Might I say we can do better than that? Meanwhile, I'd like to thank and acknowledge my dearest colleague and friend, Maureen Bunyan of WJLA in Washington, for joining me here tonight and sharing this very special celebration with me. She probably knows me better than most. We, after all, as she had mentioned earlier, launched our careers at the same time at the Columbia University Special Summer Program for Minority Journalists, which we entered just about 39 summers ago. And though our careers found us on opposite coasts, most of that time we stayed connected and engaged in multiple projects for women journalists, and we earned our stripes together. Speaking of that summer of '70, another colleague of ours is here tonight, and I want to congratulate Geraldo Rivera, who was one of our fellow travelers on that journalism quest. But meantime, he has formed a memorable career, and it's somehow significant that he, Maureen, and I are all here together from that class of 60 minority kids. There were 54 African Americans, 5 Latinos, and 1 Asian American. But I think that there are probably only a handful of us who still practice the craft, such as it is. That program evolved under the auspices of the Ford Foundation, the guidance of Fred Friendly, and the findings of the Kerner Report, triggered by civil unrest in the U.S. that found blacks and other minorities severely underrepresented in the media, and we were the answer. Isn't that ironic that today, 4 decades after that report and the Columbia Journalism Program, in unos sentidos, not much has changed, as NAHJ's parody program, which has its successes bringing Latino journalists into media, still struggles to find a lasting foothold in an ever-changing media landscape, and a diminishing one that has seen many of our Latino colleagues who would normally be here with us tonight unemployed. A landscape, though, that has seen a boom in ethnic media, which, though it is struggling with the same economic challenges, according to New America Media, increased its audience by 16% in the past 4 years and reaches 60 million people. And that brings me to a tip of the hat to our third honoree tonight, Juan Gonzalez of El Tecalote in San Francisco. When I started in Los Angeles in 1970 after Columbia, I arrived in a city that had just seen the eruption of Mexican-American anti-war protests, which resulted in the shooting death of one of our early journalism greats, Ruben Salazar, from an allegedly misguided bullet fired by an LA deputy sheriff. The award-winning columns he wrote then still resonate today. In 1970, when I went to San Francisco to work at KRON-4 on my first tour of duty there, Latino community activists had already opened the doors of that very same TV station by demonstrating, picketing, and threatening to challenge the station's license. That effort resulted in one of the first Latino public affairs shows in the nation, Alma de Bronce. I remember going to one of those activist meetings and one man calling me sellout for working in mainstream media. I believed then, as I do now, that we can't have a voice if we don't sit at the table. And time has not changed that, because we as Latino journalists continue to struggle to win inclusion as the norm, not the exception. My dearest nephew, of whom I am very proud, is now an NBC correspondent. Yes, a job that I dreamed of since the age of 14 when I decided to become a journalist and longed to be a foreign correspondent. Between the ages of 30 and 40, I tried every network. Each recruiter had a different reason for rejecting me, but they all sounded like excuses. At CBS, they told me, oh, foreign correspondents don't get as much face time. At NBC, oh, you don't want to go to El Salvador, it's rough out there. At ABC, oh, you're a big fish out there in San Francisco, you don't want to start at the bottom. And in all those years, I think I can count on two hands the numbers of Latinos that went to the network and the too few who survived. It's 2009, and my nephew Miguel Almaguer, who first came to NAHJ as a student for El Noticiero 8 or 9 years ago, asked me if he promoted too many Latino stories, would that pigeonhole him? I said, look around the network. Tell me how many brown faces do you see? So do you think that Latinos have gotten a fair hearing? NAHJ's own network report cards over the years have shown that the majority of network minutes focused on Latinos, and most of it on immigration. So I said to Miguel, what do you think? I don't suggest you fall on your sword, but be a damn fine reporter. Don't be a diva. Promote all kinds of stories. Show them your smarts and your interest in the world. Do your job well. Maintain high standards. Earn your stripes and earn respect. But it is incumbent on you to try to make a difference. And in that position of respect, you can be proactive. You can suggest stories about Latinos and make them diverse so you can reflect who we are with our multiple layers of history, culture, and successes. Remember Judge Sonia Sotomayor, that wise Latina woman who believes her experience and culture, so different from those white males, can add to the understanding, not the division. And so I say the same to all of you young journalists who now face even greater challenges. And I heard plenty of pain and concern here this week, and I also found room for hope. My concern is not for all the platforms on which we can now practice our craft. It is about the quality of the work that will matter most. I am pleased to report that I was heartened when I heard panel leaders remind attendees to keep their standards high, whether they tweeted or blogged or multitasked in a newsroom besieged by layoffs and morale brought low. I loved the opportunity I've had over the years. I did some darn fine work myself. I raged at the lack of opportunity, which limited my chance to do more. I bristled at implications that my only talent was in being a Latino number. And I was proud that my Latino-ness could bridge all minority groups, so I was able to reflect their story, their experience, in their voice. Remember that a good reporter, whatever color, whatever gender, whatever political or sexual persuasion, is a good reporter. And never forget that with that title, reporter, comes a power and a responsibility. Your very Latino-ness gives you an even greater ability to understand, bridge, cultivate, and include many communities. By the very lack of our numbers, each of us who has gone before has felt the need to stand for something more than ourselves. And that while each and every one of us has a right to pursue our individual dream, that same responsibility sits on the shoulders of all of us who are still out here. Remember the words of that old Native American saying, "You will be judged by the tracks you leave." Make them big ones. Thanks again for this honor, and don't let the rascals get you down.